How do we start this? I think that's how we start it.
Okay.
So how do we start this?
So we started it?
I think we started it.
Okay.
So let's just talk about like why we're doing this.
Well, first let's introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because people may not know who we are.
For sure you don't know who we are because we've been in hiding for over a year.
At least.
By the way, full disclosure, I am vaccinated, so that's why Eric and I are together with no masks.
And I have antibodies.
So we're safety first, don't worry.
Right. So I'm Erich Schwenk, and this is Kara Lambert, and we are trustees in the village of Mundelein. And we decided to bring back an old video series of the Mundelein Minute, which was once a
1 minute thing.
It was supposed to be a 1 minute quick update of the village board meeting. And I think we are looking to grow the Mundelein Minute into more than a minute, but still just a shorter update of what's actually happening in local village politics, whether that's a recap of board meetings,
Hopefully we'll have like an interview with some staff come in. That would be like my idea. Like I want to answer any questions that come in. So basically this came about because the residents are clamoring for more information, which cool. I want to make it accessible, but I also want to make it understandable because like if you read this agenda, what does a lot of this mean?
What's a TIF policy?
What's a TIF?
What's a TIF? Things like that have come up many times, and you know, you could go and
you can Google it, but you're still not gonna understand it. I mean, at least like I wouldn't until it's in context of like what you relate to and areas you relate to, and it sounds like it applies to you. Then maybe it's a little bit understandable, at least in my mind. Depends how you learn, right?
Sure.
Maybe you're a visual learner and we're not hitting you at all with this information, but we're trying.
But we could. So the goal is to, after board meetings, sit down and have a conversation, have a discussion about the board meeting. And then in off weeks, sit down and have a discussion about what's happening in the village, answer those questions that people have, and hopefully build from there. And that's the goal. I'd also throw in there what it is not. This is not a village-sponsored podcast/video podcast, whatever this ends up being. This is two people who decided to launch into this and create this video series. It's not anything sponsored by the village, no taxpayer funds, purchased microphones or video equipment or anything else. This is all things that I have from creating videos on my own in my own time.
This is Eric's hobby.
This is my hobby.
What he's hinting at.
So I'd also say what this is not an election podcast where we're not talking about candidates, platforms, who's running for office, where, what. That's not our goal in creating this podcast series.
The goal is, at least in my mind, is to just like keep people informed.
The
Mundelein Minute started it, but that was only a minute, and it's hard to follow everything in a minute. And I'm hoping this is a little bit more like not just a rundown of the minutes, because you know you can read the minutes online, but like an explanation of what that stuff means.
And to be honest, that was a very heavily scripted. I had to sit down and write a script, which took time, and to try to get everything down to a certain number of words, which fit into a minute, and then talk fast to get all of that recorded quickly, and then get it posted online so that it's fresh and relevant. It was a lot, and it didn't allow for a conversation about what's actually happening. It was more just reporting. This is what happened. Yeah. So I would like to launch into a podcast series, a video podcast series, whatever this is, that goes into a bit more depth.
That's my hope. And makes it understandable. That's a big thing for me.
Probably 15 to 20 minutes an episode.
This one might be long because we're just explaining like what we're trying to do. And like if people watch this and are like, you guys are doing this all wrong, just email us and like let us know your feedback. I want to know if I'm doing something wrong. So like please just like let us know.
Please.
Our emails are out there.
They are.
We're both on Facebook. Like
I also set up one because I'm a nerd, and I'm building out a website to host all of these videos. So of course I have the domain mundeleinminute.com, and you could email hello@mundeleinminute.com, and it will go to us and we will be able to answer your questions.
So good. I went to email Eric something the other day, and I literally had 4 emails pop up
That
for
sounds
him
about
in
right.
my Gmail, and I was like, all right, well, we'll just pick this one.
They all go to the same place.
So anyways, let's go over how last night went. So it was a relatively quick meeting.
Relatively quick. There was technically 2 with a village board meeting, and then we recessed into a hearing in the middle.
So we'll just go through this. So like call to order, whatever. We said the pledge, approve some minutes.
I'm going to interrupt one thing real quick
Yeah.
before we get started. We're both real people, so you'll probably see us check our watches because we still get text messages. We have kids.
Oh yeah, I have 2 kids at home.
I have several that are upstairs that I'm in the basement here, and you can probably hear them on the microphone walking around on the squeaky floors of this old house. So there's also some cats and a bird, and those may chime in and join the podcast at some point too. So
That's okay. It just proves that we're like normal.
we're just people. Okay, so yes.
So we started the
sorry
meeting.
from distractions.
That's all right. I mean, that's kind of a summary that we're people. So there was a ton of mayoral proclamations last night. A lot of people are retiring in the village, which is good and bad, right? You're losing good people, but
we're losing a lot of institutional knowledge, and last night was bittersweet.
A little bit proof of that, right?
It is, but I also want to point out that this all came out of a cost-saving measure due to the pandemic. So our new village administrator, Erich Gunther, came to the board and brought forth an early retirement program. And
I just want to clarify though, like this was not forced retirement.
This was not forced retirement. Voluntary. This was all people that wanted to retire could accept this program, and we staggered those dates out so that we didn't lose everybody all at once, and we accepted their retirements early. And this allows us to hire new staff members at a lower rate, which is therefore a savings for several years down the road. And it also lets people retire when they're ready.
Yep.
So this was kind of a win-win for the village, a win-win for the taxpayer and the employee. So there was quite a few retirements.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think there was like 12
I think there was
eight
retirements, if I'm right. And then there was a couple of just other proclamations for people that have worked on commissions or committees for several years, and just recognizing the work that they've done.
Yeah. Yep. So then we kind of like got into business under the mayor's report, and there was a reduction in liquor licenses. This was for Rosati's over by Target. They obviously closed in March 2021 or March 2020. Sorry. When the pandemic hit, they kind of just like closed their doors. They couldn't make it. But as of now, that is the only restaurant we had that didn't survive.
Right.
So like that's good. I mean, in my mind, that's good. So yeah, we reduced the liquor licenses, and then also their gaming license went away. So
we do this we don't allow licenses to hang out there. The number of licenses that are per ordinance are the number of licenses that are issued. So if there's 75 video gaming licenses available, there are 75 video gaming terminals holding those licenses. When we reduce that, if somebody were to return their license and no longer wish to use the video gaming license, then we reduce that by ordinance so that there isn't one just hanging out there that we could be forced to give to a individual or a business
that might not be the most desirable. Or
correct.
Yeah.
So you'll see quite often in our agendas and our minutes as we increase and decrease the number of liquor licenses and video gaming licenses.
And that's why we do that. All right, let's move on to something that I am super pumped about. This America in Bloom committee appointment.
This is all you.
So I'm so excited about this. So when I was first elected, I sat with our old village administrator, and we talked about how we can make Mundelein pretty, for like lack of better word, right? And by that I mean like some beautification projects. So improving the viaducts as you enter into town over where the railroads cross on 45. is there anything we can do with like planting more greenery and trees and flowers around downtown? And we, obviously we could, but there's a cost, right, associated with that. And so we were kind of searching for how we could go about doing this, and we came across this Americas in Bloom. And so there's now a committee and this was in a partnership with the Rotary Club. Mm-hmm. Is it a club? Is that what you call it? Rotary Club group? What's the right word? With Rotary, I guess. We'll just say with Rotary. Yeah. And so this committee will kick off kind of doing that. And I have like a big packet of where we want to explore and what we want to do. And my big areas are environmental practices, so implementing best environmental practices. So using native species, using native grasses, and that's kind of been big push for me in terms of when we develop areas too, because those native species help with flooding. And then also making things pretty. So I could probably talk about this longer, but I won't, because like people probably will get bored. But I'm super excited about this. So we're hopefully going to kick off the committee like in the next coming weeks, and then we'll get to work and make things look as nice as they can. But yeah, this is, something I've talked about for 2 years with staff, and now it's finally coming to fruition. So super pumped with that. I like when things happen fast. So that's that. Now, this is where we'll go to Trustee Schwenk's expertise. We're gonna go.
You like the in bloom and the flowers, and next was we recessed into a public hearing to talk about TIF and a new TIF district. Mm-hmm. So
TIF 4.
TIF 4. So TIF stands for Tax Increment Financing, and it is a way for villages to hopefully spur development. And TIF 4, even though we have only 2 others.
Right.
We had one prior.
So why? I was gonna say, why is this called TIF 4? You asked that question last night.
I did, and it's kind of an interesting one. So technically, TIF 1 and TIF 2, which are in the downtown area, are downtown TIF 1 and 2, but by ordinance they are TIF 2 and TIF 3. That there was a prior TIF many years ago, and so by ordinance, this now becomes
TIF 4.
TIF number 4.
But I feel like for like colloquialism, this might turn into like the Oak Creek TIF.
Oak Creek TIF is exactly what it will end up being, or something along those lines. Yeah. We generally don't refer to them as the numbers. We generally refer to, which side of the track is that on?
Yeah, exactly.
And then figure out which
TIF we're
talking about.
So what does this mean? What can we do? Why are we doing this?
So this TIF is in hopes to spur some major development, redevelopment of the Oak Creek Plaza area, the Patriots Plaza, the Garden Fresh area. There's some land behind Garden Fresh that's, some of it's in Mundelein, some of it is not. And the hope is to have that area redeveloped. So in short, a TIF takes the base equalized assessed value of the land, so whatever it is today.
And the equalized assessed value is what taxes are based on, yeah?
Correct.
Okay.
And freezes that amount for the next 23 years.
So the base is set here.
Correct.
And then once it's redeveloped, your EAV is up here.
And hopefully a steady climb in there over the next 23 years. And the taxing bodies, whether that's the school districts, the library, the village, they all receive their standard property taxes off that frozen EAV, that base at the bottom. Anything else over the next 23 years that gets an increase in their assessed value goes into a separate fund away from the normal taxes. And that goes into a TIF fund for the village to use to spur development.
In that area.
In that area.
It has to stay in that area. Right?
Yes and no. So things like TIF funds can be used to help create library space. So I'm not sure if that's fully in Fremont's library district, but as an example, if there was excess TIF funds, the Village of Mundelein can partner with, as a good faith effort,
as a good partnership,
as a good partner, to create extra space or build out what's needed for the library because there's new development, possibly new residents that's impacting that space. So we haven't seen that kind of development where we have excess TIF funds to do that kind of work.
Right.
But it's a possibility. Generally, it stays within that TIF district to do work for public improvements.
And there's certain things it can only be used for, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The guy had what did he say? Bricks and sticks, mostly.
Bricks and sticks, and you have to prove that you need those funds. So the village will work with a third-party analyst to look over what are necessary expenses for one, and then what am I looking for? Pro forma, and what the budget looks like for the development, and if it actually can make money down the road. And they work with a third party to make sure that all those numbers work, so that we're not just giving away taxpayer dollars to somebody who asks. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you don't automatically get it just because you build in the TIF.
Correct.
So you have to. This is just another carrot in our. That's the wrong word. Yeah, another carrot, like in the salad bowl of things you can offer them.
Sure.
I think I just made that up.
And we've, way to go. We've had very few TIF projects, even though we've had 2 TIFs for 20 years now in Mundelein.
Well, we have 7 years left on it, so.
7 years left. You do that math.
I don't know. What is it, 17? 16?
So,
16.
So,
holy guacamole.
Yeah.
Yikes.
The TIF projects, like the old Village Hall development,
there you go,
used some TIF funds, but it was not a TIF project. Cardinal Square is a TIF project.
Yes.
And I don't think the Village Hall subdivision was. I'm trying to think of what developments were out there. Springbank has TIF included.
TIF included, yes.
But it's not a full TIF. Well, like Village Hall is not a full TIF project, and we really don't have many. We have
just
a lot of
because it's built in the TIF district doesn't mean it's a TIF project.
Exactly.
Anyways.
So last night was a formality. The TIF statute that the state put in requires public notices, public hearings. We have to.
It has to go in front of all the taxing bodies that are affected by it.
All the taxing bodies have to have the joint review board to vote on it.
And so what's in these taxing bodies? Who is included?
The school districts.
Which is what?
76.
Yep.
Stevenson.
Yep.
120.
Yep.
For Mundelein High School. And I think that's it.
That's it for schools. And then the library.
I think it's all Fremont.
I think it's Fremont and the Park District.
Correct.
So all of those supported it and wrote us a letter, in fact, that they supported it.
They all voted in support of it, except for 76 who abstained and later passed a resolution in support of it. Yes.
So I don't know what that means, but we got consensus, basically.
We have consensus for support to create the TIF.
Can we go back to the school? Sorry, this is
Sure.
how my brain works. So scatterbrained. Go back to the schools, and so everyone's going to be nervous that they're not going to get funding. But if the TIF generates more students, they will get student funding.
Correct. And if development in the TIF...
So say, for example, there's housing that goes on there. This is just an example. There's residential that goes on there, and there's 300 new kids. Totally not going to happen, but that's a big number.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. Anything's possible. But there's a lot of kids that go on it. The school will get a per kid payment for those new students, right? Is that what I read last night?
I believe so. But also...
It's in the packet, but I think they'll get the funding to handle
then there's
also
impact fees to help with the addition of those new students to the school district.
Correct.
So that could be used, if you look at some areas, one that stands out in my mind is Plainfield. And when Plainfield had lots of development in the early 2000s, they used those funds, not necessarily TIF funds, but impact fees, to build new schools. One that I lived in, they had to build a whole school just to handle the amount of kids that this development was going to create. And it was in the center of the community and ended up pulling from other developments nearby. But those were what those impact fees paid for.
And just because you're in a TIF doesn't mean you don't pay impact fees or things like that.
And the impact fees aren't for ongoing operational expenses. They're for the impact.
I mean, now we could talk about impact fees, and that's a whole other podcast. And that's
true. We should probably just go back to TIF.
That's a whole can of worms.
But as you can see, it's all related.
Yeah, it is. Everything is tied in. So we had the public hearing for this, and then the presentation was good. And if anyone's interested in the presentation, we can email to you. But I thought it was interesting. I always learn something new when we talk about TIF because they're so complicated and convoluted, and every time they get brought up, I'm like, I didn't know that. So yeah, there's a ton of information there about TIFs. So if anyone is like super interested in TIFs, like let us know and we'll get you some info.
Right.
Like I will, because it's a lot. Anyways.
So after TIFF.
Then we went to Trustee Reports.
There was a lot for Public Works.
Yeah.
Public Works is almost
you're
done.
like jumping the game.
Oh, sorry. What was next?
Community Economic Development.
Oh, sorry.
So we approved a sign variance for Sundance, and then there was a ton of basically motions to allow staff to draft things related to the TIF. So we weren't approving or denying the TIF last night. We were discussing ordinances, allowing staff to draft the ordinance to move forward, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So the TIF, we're in a waiting period after the public hearing. We can't do anything for 14 to 90 days is our window. So we have to wait at least 14 days, which is the next village board meeting. So
we'll
staff is now drafting the ordinance to get that on the agenda probably at the next board meeting.
And then, so that was a bunch of motions there. And then I asked for, that was not on the agenda, but I asked for like an update from community development on like what's going on, because we get a lot of questions about what's going on Midlothian with the senior center, with the senior citizen housing. Like that's right by the Region Center. I live in that neighborhood, so I walk by it every day. So I was curious too. And then some people had asked us about like what's going on at LA Fitness. And I just kind of wanted to, as the pandemic slowly, hopefully, fingers crossed, starts to wind down, building should start again, in theory, cautiously, right? So Miss Amanda Runcheck, who's like the head of community development, just gave us a brief kind of lowdown. And the building on the project on Midlothian, which is supposed to be assisted living, is kind of in a holding pattern right now. Obviously, that industry was hit really hard with COVID. Things were crazy there. I'm sure that their management team is like up in arms and, just trying to live day to day right now. I don't know that growth is on their mind, but the project is still set tentatively to move forward. I think it's just going to be patience. And I know the community is mad that the trees were taken down and construction was like all ready to begin. And because it was, and then 2020, like no one saw that coming.
And that industry was hit extremely hard.
So that's what's going on there. The LA Fitness, kind of the same thing. The gym industry was hit pretty hard. There was a Lifetime supposed to open in Lake Zurich, and that didn't even get under roof before they kind of stopped building it. So at least the LA Fitness, is under roof and damage didn't occur to the inside of the building. So who knows? As we see commercial stuff start to rebound, little by little, I think those projects will move forward. But
Amanda had a good point that...
Oh, no, I just dropped all of our agendas.
Amanda had a good point
real
that...
life, folks, real life.
Everything just kind of seems to be getting extension after extension.
Yeah.
That all these shopping centers, whatever plans people have, they just keep extending it. Oh, let's see what happens in 3 months. Let's see what happens in 6 months. And in hopes that...
I think that speaks for retail in general, right? Retail is...
For major developments, for retail, all of that. I mean, the housing market in Mundelein
hot.
is absolutely crazy right now. I know of a house not far from mine that was under contract in 5 hours. So
yeah, we've heard from realtor friends of ours that have said that people are coming in with all cash offers first showing.
And then being declined.
Yeah. So side note, my brother lives in the city, like has lived in the city forever, right? Like they are city people. They have 3 kids. They are city people. This weekend, guess what they did? Looked at housings in the suburbs.
Yep.
Like, what? So I think people are losing their interest in like urban, like downtown, like city life.
Sure.
And they're coming out here, which is great. I mean, we're gonna have a totally new community soon, and that's cool. Like, new people are good. It always brings new ideas, and
yep,
I'm for it, man.
All right, what's next?
Public Works. Woo! Lord, okay, how many were on here?
11?
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 11. No, 10. Because the 11 was the Sheldon Ones one. But 10 change orders for Public Works. What does this mean? What are we doing? What's going on?
So, and
going on?
I asked that last night,
Help me.
and Adam, our director of Public Works, said that we're close to the end with
like moving into the new space.
Because we were on change order 40...
46, I think, was approved last night.
Something.
46 or 47.
He said there's a couple more in the pipeline.
So why do we do change orders? What does that mean?
That we're just changing the contract and changing the amount of money and changing for what work
and
needed to
not
be
all
done.
of these were for like more money. Let's just throw that out there really quick.
Yes.
Some of these were for credit too. So you have to change the contract to receive money back in. So
and I'm going to point out from what we're told that
we're under budget.
The entire project is under budget.
Which is crazy to think about right now because it's a huge project and the cost of like raw materials has gone through the roof.
Correct.
So we probably built at the right time because if we had built now, we would have been it would have been a bad deal. That's what my son says. He always asks me, "Mom, is that a good deal or a bad deal?" And I think this one is a good deal. And then the 11th one, hey-o, plat of easement for Sheldon Woods. What's that mean? What's Sheldon Woods? Eric is looking at me like I'm crazy. I think my coffee just kicked in too, so I just got like,
yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, keep going. You're on a roll here. Sheldon Woods.
So Sheldon Woods is a new development by Target. I'm pointing to Target, but that's my hand's opposite. That's funny.
But that is, the direction to Target from my house, from where you're sitting.
That is...
Okay.
We might need to edit some of this.
Nope.
So there's a new subdivision going up there across the street from Target. By the way, these houses are gorgeous. When they did the presentation to us, God, it's been a year?
I would have to go back and look. I don't know.
It's probably been a year.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, I was pregnant. It's got to have been a year. Wow, that's crazy. Time goes fast. But these houses are beautiful. Yes. Beautiful.
Ginormous.
They're big. They're just gorgeous. I'm super pumped about this because I secretly want to buy a house in there. That's like my goal, is to buy a house. But who knows? We'll see. Don't tell my husband that. All right, so we're going to talk about Sheldon Woods, the awesome subdivision that's going by Target. We approved a plat of easement for connecting the water main from Sheldon Woods. So we just hooked them up to city water. It's a big fancy term for hooking them up to city water.
And making the space to do so.
Yeah. Cool. And then it's on to you, man. Finance committee. What do we do?
So finance committee, really nothing outside the ordinary. There's always at least two motions. The first is regarding AT&T separated bills. We pull those out because Trustee Meyer worked for AT&T for quite a while, and she has a conflict there. So if it was included in the entire governing body bill approval, our fancy word for everything else, bills, yeah, she would have to abstain every time, and that's just not fair. So when there's a known conflict, we will pull that one item out so that trustee can abstain and then still vote on the full bill approval. And if memory serves, our full bill approval, the second was 1.5.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna get it down to the
$1,536,000.
Oh,
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, what was the change?
I don't know.
94 cents.
Okay, so a little bit more than normal, but it's pretty much in line with where our bill approval.
It's always
generally
in this range.
Is, yeah.
And this is like the spending we do literally on everything. So.
And just a side note, this everything that we talk about includes payments for. Let's see, there was one in there to Jewel for a 50% tax sharing for a redevelopment agreement there. Yeah, and then there's also things like nuts and bolts and washers from Ace Hardware. Yeah. So
it's literally everything.
Literally. And it's shown in the board packet as well as on the finance page on the village's website. There's a
list of what it is.
What do we call it? Disbursement pending report.
Yeah.
And you can go and look every 2 weeks or so when we do a board meeting. That list is there and shows exactly what we're spending money on, and
yeah, it's pretty straightforward,
down to the penny.
Yeah. Then we moved on to public.
There was one other thing that I mentioned was the finance committee meeting is next Monday at 6 p.m. and this is where.
It's 6 where we hash it out for the budget for next year.
Yep. We go over the entire budget for the next fiscal year. And I've always thought this is weird that we will set the budget before the new board is seated. But that's just the way that our fiscal year works out and the election works out. So we will be setting the budget literally days before the three new trustees join the board. So
which is what, it happened to us too.
It happened to us.
And we just sat in the meeting and made sure we knew all we could,
and kudos to the village during that time. They made sure that we had the budget packets in advance. They made sure that we had our questions answered, and even though we didn't get to vote on the budget, they were very open to teaching us, I think, or helping educate us on what was going on.
And both of us have backgrounds in budgets, like both of us know that, but a municipal budget looks way different than any budget I've seen in the private sector.
Correct.
So it was definitely a learning curve, and I think these three new trustees, other than Sol, who's been here,
Correct.
will have a similar learning curve, but I think all of us are willing to help them like come up to speed, you know. I mean,
Of course. Yeah. And the department heads are really good
they're so good.
about going through.
Eric's camera just flicked. Sorry.
Yep, that
Easily
camera.
distracted.
I think the battery died on that one. It's old. But the budget, they're really good about going through the numbers, helping us understand what's being budgeted and why, and how long that item has been on the list to get accomplished. So they're really good about that.
And then public safety. So we just one motion, and that was basically to enter an agreement with the health department, Lake County Health Department, and this was explained to us that this is basically for animal control services. So Mundelein PD will help you catch said animal, dog, whatever, cat, I don't know. And then if no one claims it, it goes up to the health department's shelter, and this is just the agreement allowing us to do that.
And then this also covers they will come out and help capture an animal if it's something that the police department can't manage themselves.
Like a snake.
Like the snake that was loose in the police department. I asked, and they didn't come out to help with that. The police department handled that all on their own.
Yeah, and look at how that went. Got loose. Maybe it should have had Lake County come out. I'm kidding.
I just keep thinking to Facebook videos I've seen and the random crocodile that gets loose, and I'm like, oh great, that's exactly what we need.
The one that's like going through in Malaysia or whatever, where it's going through the 7-Eleven. Lord.
So they'll come out and help if there's a large animal or something that MPD can't handle themselves. They'll come out and help for that. And this just basically covers that. This contract covers the cost associated if they have to respond to something like that.
God, I hope not. And then we heard from the fire department. They talked about the blood drive. It was super successful.
It was successful. It was well attended, and I actually kind of like it where they did it in the bay instead of they usually do it downstairs in the basement area of the training rooms. This time they did it in the bay, which is larger and has pretty good open space. They just moved the fire trucks outside, and it was awesome. It was pretty cool. Yeah,
good.
Worked well.
Perfect. And then nothing from building, and then transportation, which is me. Nothing super exciting, just spending motor fuel tax. So motor fuel tax is a bucket that has to be spent on roads. And so when you fill up your gas tank, there's a motor fuel tax associated with filling up your tank. It has to be spent on roads, correct?
I believe so.
I mean, your finance, I think I'm right.
Okay.
I mean, I think so. Roads and infrastructure, but I think just roads, right?
Well, and associated costs.
Right, so.
Which would be
roads, repaving. So we're just going to spend some money to, what's it called? Resurface some roads. And what I think is cool that most people don't know is we are in a joint resurfacing agreement. So we partner with Libertyville.
There's a lot.
Vernon Hills. Like basically most of the surrounding towns. We partner with them so that we get increased buying power to keep our costs as low as possible. So, like.
Buying bulk.
Just like Costco.
It's the Costco of road surfacing.
That's right. Other reports, there was nothing. Well, wait. The last section, the omnibus vote. What does omnibus mean?
Omnibus is things that
don't fall
into a normal category, that are generally not going to be something that is discussed. It can be. It can always be pulled out and discussed.
Yeah.
Generally, there's a lot of contracts. If we're renewing a cleaning company contract that we
typically do every year that we still need to vote on it.
And I think May or June we'll see a lot of those.
Oh yeah, after the first of the fiscal year. Oh my God,
correct. Remember after the fiscal year, it's generally a quite a few recurring contracts that come up, and those are generally the omnibus items. So these are not your hot button.
They shouldn't be. Yeah,
they shouldn't be, correct.
And if it is, I would hope that someone would pull it and we would vote on it. So there was a replacement of TIF note, and then the agreements that we have with the high school and Carl Sandburg about a police officer being stationed there.
Correct, and these now have a built-in escalation for the next several years. So this won't be back on the omnibus vote list next year. I think it goes through 2025.
So we won't see it again for a while. And then village administrator gave an update about we talked about business licensing and then
the costs that we've pushed off for the last fiscal year and what it looks like for the next fiscal year, and how we're going to collect licensing fees registration fees from
liquor
businesses,
license fees, gaming fees.
business registration fees.
Yeah, all the things.
All the things that we've pushed off to try to be business friendly during the pandemic.
But in full disclosure, we met with the business community and asked them, like, hey, are you guys okay? Like, do you want us to structure it differently? Like, can you pay in payments? And the majority of the businesses said, no, we'll just write you a check.
Correct.
So we did make sure that this was okay to do before we did it. I mean, I think that did what we could. And then we talked about, we have those 2 grant programs, the outdoor dining grant and then the utility assistance grant program, both of which are kind of like dying down. But we've helped, I think Eric, our village administrator said we helped 17.
Yeah, 16 or 17 was in my mind, of businesses with either the dining grant program or with utilities.
That's good. I mean, that's what we're here for.
That's what it's for.
And then we talked about water.
Correct. So our water, we've pushed off water shutoffs, and we've pushed off the late payments for water, and we're not going to go back and collect on those late payments. We will start collecting late payments going forward after this ordinance expires at the end of April 2021. So we're not going, okay, well, we didn't collect it for the last year.
Now you owe us all you owe us our late fees.
Right. Yeah. No, that's not the right way to do it. So we're going to start collecting those monies going forward. And
there's like $300,000.
$300,000, and there was one business in Mundelein who owes $120,000 of that $300,000, and our staff is going to work with those, whether it's homeowners or renters.
I was concerned about residential. I just want to make sure we do the right thing, and I was assured last night we would do the right thing and kind of like work on a payment plan as easy as possible for the residents. So.
And they're going to work with people so that they can create a payment plan. Shutting off water is the absolute last thing that our staff is going to do. They really don't want to do that. They want people to continue to have that service, and
so they can wash their hands
and stay
basically
healthy,
right?
Continue to run their business too.
Yeah. So executive session, we didn't have one, and that was it. So it was like, we were out pretty fast last night. I thought it was a good meeting. We got some things done.
About an hour and a half with the meeting and the hearing.
Yeah, the TIF meeting was good. So yeah, I think this is all out of order now, so it's bothering me, but it's fine. So that's our first deal.
That's our first podcast. So thanks for tuning in.
Eric's got some editing to do. I'm just kidding.
I'm going to edit and get this posted online.
Yeah, we'll post it. And then, so seriously, like, if this is something that you liked or you didn't like, or you're like, you guys are wasting your time, please let us know. Or if there's a different format, or if I'm annoying you, or if Eric's annoying you because of doing something, just let us know. And I think both of us want to make sure that the community is informed as possible. Absolutely. And you guys are involved as possible. I mean, I want to be accessible as possible. Like, I'm just a mom that's doing this because I want this community to be good to raise kids in. So let me know.
Yep.
Eric's just a dad, just doing dad things.
Yep.
All right. I feel like we should have a cool sign off.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm a mom. I'm not very cool. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly told by my 15-year-old how uncool I am.
Oh, see, my son's 4. I'm still cool.
Oh, lucky.
I got some time. All right, cool. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.